Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to go over how the end game of Diablo 4 is going to play out. Now keep in mind, we don't have all the information about Diablo 4's end game and we don't have a lot of the more minute details. Now this video is going to be more focused on the end game, but I also want to go over the path you're going to be taking from the first minute you start playing Diablo 4 all the way into the end game using all of the information I could find. So once Diablo 4 is released and you start up the game, you're going to be choosing your class and customizing your character. And then once you get into game, it is seeming like there's going to be a prologue you play through that's going to take you into the acts. And we know there are 6 acts. And then it also seems there's going to be some introduction into the end game after that. So once you get in game, get through the prologue, you are going to have this whole open world of Diablo 4 to pretty much go do whatever you want. Now the main campaign of Diablo 4 is going to work quite a bit differently because you can pretty much go to whatever different region in the open world you want. There are going to be a ton of different areas that have main quests, and we know you're able to tackle these main quests throughout these regions in whichever order you want. Now we don't know exactly how this is going to play out, but you're going to have a lot of freedom to tackle the main quest. Then you're also going to have all of your side quests. You're going to have all the dungeons you can explore and go play through, run through, kill the bosses, get all the loot. We know there's going to be open world events constantly popping up everywhere. There's going to be camps you can liberate that will turn into what's essentially a settlement out in the world that will have some more vendors in there. You can go unlock all the teleporters throughout the map. There is going to be 3 world bosses on launch that you'll probably be able to stumble across. And all of this content you're doing is going to be leveling you up. Now, around the time you get done with the main campaign of Diablo 4, it is said by developers that you will be around level 50. This is essentially where the end game is going to start. But this doesn't mean that level 50 is the max level, because in Diablo 4, the max level is going to be level 100. And the whole time you were leveling up throughout the main campaign and getting up to level 50, you will also be getting different level up rewards, which seem to be skill points for your skill tree, where you unlock new skills for your class and unlock different upgrades and augmentations and passive effects for your class. And it also seems like you're going to be getting some amount of primary stat points while leveling up. Now with the primary stat points, we're not 100% sure because some of the leaked footage has shown that you're not actually getting those stat points, even though these stat points from leveling up are something that has been gone over in quarterly updates. So not 100% sure if that has been changed or not, but you will be getting that progression that continues on once you've started the end game. Now, once you hit level 50, there's going to be a lot of different content that unlocks for you. First off, being Paragon Boards. Once you hit level 50, you start to earn Paragon Boards. Now, I've gone over this in a separate video, but essentially, this is a big checkerboard of different powers you can choose, and it is said that you get 4 Paragon points for every level past 50. So 50 to 100, that would be 200 points, which is the cap of Paragon points you're able to spend on these boards in the game. And these boards consist of different rarities of tiles that you can put your points into, the more common ones just being stats, all the way up to legendary tiles that give you pretty big effects, which will have 1 legendary tile per board. And once you get to the edge or a gate of one of these Paragon boards, you'll have a selection of other Paragon boards that you can connect to that gate you've gotten. And you can also spin the new boards, so you can choose which point to start on from those new boards, which will just end up being these interconnected checkerboards that you're putting a bunch of points into, getting new stats, new powers, and continuing to craft your build into the end game. And while leveling up and getting these Paragon board points, you're still going to be getting your skill points that you can spend in your big skill tree to get new skills or augment your existing skills. And you're still going to be gearing up, getting new gear with all the different effects on those gear pieces, set pieces, unique items, legendary items with all their effects. And we do know that legendary effects can pretty heavily augment how skills actually perform. And these handful of systems are going to make up how you're going to go about crafting your build and continuing to expand on your build as you get more and more into the end game. Now, as you're doing all this content, you're also going to be unlocking the ability to play in higher world tiers. Now, this is something that you'll have access to when you're still leveling up, even before you get into more of the end game focused content. but it seems like these world tiers are a bit more focused on the end game side of the game. So these world tiers are exactly what you would expect. You upgrade your world tier, all the monsters you encounter are all going to be more powerful. And it's said that there will be 5 world tiers when the game is launched. Now that can obviously be changed before launch, but it seems like there's going to be 5 world tiers. Every world tier you go up, monsters get harder, you get more loot, you get more gold, and these world tiers are also going to unlock some additional content. First off, being Helltides, which is actually one of the most recent pieces of content we have heard about. And this is a more endgame focused system that you will need to unlock World Tier 3, which is Nightmare difficulty, to be able to partake in. Now, Helltides are essentially when an entire region of the world is taken over by Lilith's servants and the entire zone is empowered. And the whole zone is actually going to change. There's going to be all these big monsters, potentially all these big bosses all over, and all these monsters are going to be empowered. They're going to be much stronger. They're going to be dropping better loot. And on top of these monsters just being stronger, dropping better loot, they're also going to be dropping a new currency, which is called cinders. And cinders you're able to go and spend on Helltide specific chests that are scattered throughout the region when the Helltide is active. And something interesting with these chests is they are going to be labeled with specific item slots. So say if you go to this chest, it could say two-handed weapons. Do you want to use your cinders on opening a chest that gives you two-handed weapons or legs or torso? So you're able to use these cinders on the specific loot types you want. And Helltides do seem like they'll have a pretty big importance in the end game because you'll be able to go and target farm loot from these Helltide chests. So if you're really looking for this staff for your sorceress build, you can go farm these Helltides, get all the cinders, and only open up chests that are only going to give you staffs. Now, while you're in the end game, running around completing your Helltides, killing monsters in the open world, you will also be able to see these new objectives called Whispers all over your map. And these are tied to another end game system called Whispers of the Dead. Now, these different Whispers you see all over the map are going to be different objectives you can go complete for experience, gold, and another type of currency called Grim Favors. Now, once you have obtained 10 of these Grim Favors from doing these Whispers all over your map, you're then able to go turn in these 10 Grim Favors to the Tree of Whispers, which will give you a ton of loot and experience. Now, one of the really important things you're going to be looking for from the Tree of Whispers are Nightmare Sigils, which are going to go along with Nightmare Dungeons, which is another system we're going to go over later in this video. Now, these Whispers that are all over the map are going to be objectives that rotate frequently, with new ones always becoming available throughout the day. And you'll be able to see and choose what different Whispers you want to go complete because they're all going to have different rewards, different amounts of XP, and just different loot to go hunt. So this is also another way that you're able to kind of target what different types of loot you want to go for. And this system is also something that you unlock once you've already completed the main quests of the game. And with how they've been explaining the system, this seems like a more Diablo-fied version of something like world quests from World of Warcraft, except it sounds like there's going to be a lot more of them and they're going to be cycling out a lot more frequently than something like world quests would. So once you've completed yourself 10 Whispers and you've gotten your 10 Grim Favors, you can go turn them into the Tree of Whispers, which can potentially give you Nightmare Sigils, which brings us to Nightmare Dungeons, which seems to be the most substantial part of the endgame for Diablo 4 on launch. Now, in Diablo 4, there's going to be over 150 different dungeons scattered throughout the world. All of these dungeons are going to be actual unique places you have to go to enter. Now, the layout of inside the dungeon, the objectives you have to do, and a lot of the monster spawns can be pretty randomized, but it's always going to feel like you're in that specific dungeon. So instead of having something like rifts from Diablo 3, you now have a specific place that's recognizable as that place to go farm looted instead of just 100% randomized rifts. And once you get into the end game, these dungeons come with you in the form of Nightmare Dungeons, which you activate with Nightmare Sigils, which seem to be primarily obtained through the Tree of Whispers. Now, Nightmare Sigils are essentially you putting in a key to bump up everything about that dungeon. So you make it more difficult, you give it more loot, you add special modifiers to the dungeon, and essentially turn that specific dungeon into an endgame version of that dungeon. Now, we don't know a lot of the specifics of different modifiers for these or how the loot's specifically going to work, but the developers have specifically said that they do want you getting a lot of these nightmare sigils or dungeon keys, and they want you to be able to actually choose what dungeons you want to go and do. So if this dungeon is a dungeon that's not very good for your specific build, or the nightmare sigil you have that's something that's really good against your build, you may just want to skip that key, go throw it in your stash, maybe do it on a different character, or just ignore it for later. So you can pick and choose all of these different sigils to go do the dungeons you want to do. And there's going to be different difficulties on all these different keys. You're going to be able to look at the modifiers, look at how much it increases the loot out of there. And they have also mentioned that different dungeons are going to drop different items more frequently. So maybe this dungeon will drop helms more often. I'm assuming that these nightmare sigils will probably also have modifiers that change how often a specific loot piece will drop. So maybe this nightmare sigil will have a higher chance for you to get one-handed swords out of this dungeon when you're using that specific sigil. So now you've been farming your nightmare dungeons and you have a pretty good build going. So now you want to go test this build on other players, which brings you to Fields of Hatred. Now, Fields of Hatred are going to be the PvP system in Diablo 4. So certain zones out in the open world of Diablo 4 are going to be designated PvP areas called Fields of Hatred. And you're going to get a notification when you're going into them where any other player in there can attack you, and you can attack any other players that aren't in your group. Now, in these Fields of Hatred, pretty much anything you do is going to give you a new currency called Seeds of Hatred. You can get these from killing monsters, looting chests, or killing other players, because when you kill another player, any Seeds of Hatred they have will drop on the ground. Now, these Seeds of Hatred are obviously something you can lose to other players, but you can take these Seeds of Hatred to Altars of Extraction, which are also located in these Fields of Hatred, and you can smash these seeds into red dust. Now, once this is done, red dust becomes a currency that you can't lose anymore. But it's obviously going to take you some time to smash these into red dust, and when that's happening, all the other players in that Field of Hatred will be able to know that you are at an Altar of Extraction trying to turn your Seeds of Hatred into that red dust, so they could potentially come try to kill you and take your seeds before they're red dust. And there's also going to be some other systems in these Fields of Hatred, such as players who are pretty much just destroying everybody else in the zone may be marked as a bounty in that zone, and you go kill that player, you're going to get a lot more Seeds of Hatred. Once you turn these seeds into that red dust, you're able to go spend this red dust at PvP specific vendors that you're able to buy cosmetics, mounts, and other ornamental rewards. Now, in the past, developers did say that you will be able to buy actual gear from these vendors. Obviously not stuff that's better than anywhere else in the game, just another way to obtain gear, but that was not mentioned in the most recent endgame information we have gotten. So I'm not sure if you'll still be able to just buy actual gear from this, but you will 100% be able to buy a ton of different PvP cosmetics. And also keep in mind, while you're doing all of this other content, you'll still be able to do any of the other pieces of content in the open world because of the world tier system. You can bump up the world tier system. Everything in the open world is going to be stronger, going to be giving better loot. So you can still go do any of the other content out in the open world. You can go look for chests, go kill enemies, go look for the random events that pop up, go liberate all the camps so you have more vendors out in the open world and more teleport spots. So all of that content that you're partaking in while leveling up will also stay with you in the end game. And all of these different systems and pieces of content are all going to be feeding into you crafting your character, creating the different builds you want to try out, and giving you all of that gear and experience you need to craft all of those different builds. And that's pretty much all the information we have on the end game of Diablo 4 on launch. Keep in mind that sometime shortly after launch of Diablo 4, we're also going to be getting our first season. That's obviously going to be adding a ton of new content, but that is information for another video. And a lot of this endgame content that I've gone over in this video is a big reason why I'm so excited for Diablo 4, because they are actually launching it with a very fleshed out endgame. And if you compare that to something like Diablo 3, which legitimately did not have any endgame specific content, Diablo 4 is seeming to be an ARPG that's built much more for longevity and built with a pretty big focus on that endgame content and endgame build creation. But that's pretty much all I want to go over. So subscribe if you want to see more Diablo 4 or other videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about the route through endgame of Diablo 4, and thanks for watching.